So hello and welcome to the PitCast for 2022 by the Pit Crew Online. This is from the fans and for the fans. This year we've decided to shake things up a bit and bring you our thoughts on different racing series throughout the world. And this month we're talking all things bikes and we're chatting about the MotoGP. I'm your host, Jess Bird, your resident Formula One editor at the Pit Crew Online, and we have two very special guests with us today. We've recruited from the Crew On Two for some expert opinions. So our first guest is our deputy editor and contributor, Mandy. How are you, Mandy? It's lovely to have you on the PitCast today.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Jess. Thank you.
So we also have our second guest, who is a contributor and writer to the Crew On Two, Adam. So how are you today? How are you feeling about the PitCast?
Hi, Jess. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about MotoGP. Obviously, had a good race today, and looking forward to sort of geeking out and having a chat about it.
Lovely. Yes, we do love some bikes around here as well. So yeah, as of recording this, we've just had the race at Portugal. It is Sunday. But I thought we'd start off by talking about Aprilia and their massive improvement over the 2022 season compared to previous seasons. Do we think they can keep this momentum for the rest of the season? Today, they managed to finish P3 and P10, so it's quite a good race for them. But what do we think, guys? Let's start with Adam.
Yeah, obviously, Aprilia, they've sort of just been gradually, first sort of came back into MotoGP. They were a consistent back of the grid team. There was never really anything exciting going on. And then suddenly the past couple of, 2-3 years, they've just slowly started to gradually get further up the grid. And this year, I think it's still too early to say whether they can mount a real championship challenge. But another podium today, obviously, Aleix Spargaro won in Argentina, and he's just finished third today. So they're really getting there. Vinales is getting more comfortable on the bike. Obviously, the concessions for 2023, it looks like they're going to lose them for 2023, which is a disadvantage, but an advantage all the same, because, it means they're working their way back up the grids, but also they'll lose like unlimited test days, things like that. And I was just doing some reading, and I think after today's podium, they just need to score basically one more third place and they'll lose them concessions. So yeah, so all the signs are there that they're on the rise kind of thing. And I do think maybe not this year, but certainly next year, they'll be fighting for the championship. I'd like to see, especially Aleix Spargaro after the years he's committed to Aprilia. I'd like to see him at the front, consistently and fighting for a championship.
He is third in the championship now, so only like 3 points behind the leaders.
Yeah,
so he's doing really, really well.
He is certainly doing well. As you say, only 3 points off the top. I just, would like to see him to stay in that. It just obviously a case of whether they can, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it's going into Europe next, and it's so probably, it's Europe is mainly dominated by like Yamaha and Honda anyway, and so yeah. What do you think about Vinales in Aprilia?
He's gelling with the team, certainly gelling with the team, and it's nice to see him.
Friends, aren't they? So that's nice to see.
Yeah, because obviously they had their time at Suzuki together a few years back, and they've sort of reunited, and he seems a lot happier than he did with Yamaha. I think Yamaha it started off well, but you could just sort of see the signs, especially obviously last year when he was sort of kicked out at halfway through the season, that things just sort of went stale with them. But he seems to be getting there. The results are picking up, and I think Vinales is going to be, as I say, probably at the front, either back end of this year or certainly next year.
Do you think that the form of pace from Aleix is going to be kind of digging away at Vinales a little bit?
I think so. I'd like to say no, because obviously
I'd like to think no, but
yeah, it is that sort of thing, isn't it? Because Vinales is obviously, he was the Yamaha man, and
exactly.
Quartararo came into the team last year and won a championship straight away. Yeah. So
it's going to be niggling away at him, isn't it? That he's always kind of the second rider in the team.
Yeah, and do you think, obviously, Aleix has already got first win for Aprilia, and he's just got a podium today. Yeah. I think, do you think that could sort of be grind away at Vinales, and he'll maybe sit in there thinking, I've got to sort of, kind of pull my finger out and kind of get on with it maybe at the moment.
Judging by how it went in Yamaha with him, he already thinks that way, seemingly thinks that way anyway. So for his I know Alecia's been there a long time in Aprilia, and he's now doing really, really well. But just from Vinales' point of view, it might just be niggling away him bit by bit, and then will that stop him from achieving the podiums and the results he actually wants in Aprilia?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think especially as the year goes on, if Vinales maybe hangs around, let's say 10th place, 8th to 10th place kind of, and Alicia's still consistently at the front, I think especially as the back end of the year sort of approaches, I think that might be when we see Vinales maybe not falter at the line kind of thing, but maybe just sort of the doubts start to kind of maybe creep in with him.
Exactly, yeah. And then it could just be the same as what it was at Yamaha with him.
Yeah, because he moved from Suzuki to Yamaha, and was expected to sort of, blow the opposition away kind of thing. But
exactly, yeah.
And now he's moved to Aprilia.
He was winning in Yamaha, but obviously things went sour, like you said.
Yeah. And obviously now he's moved to Aprilia, new team, fresh start. It's a chance for him to sort of make the team his own. At least he's been there a few years, but Vinales was supposed to bring that kind of championship winning mentality kind of thing, but at the moment it hasn't kind of come to fruition yet. And I think I'd like to see it come to fruition in the next few rounds, because obviously Vinales is a good guy, and
but also being back in Europe, it's Vinales' like home races and things coming up, and it might be good for him in that way as well. It might be more positive for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think we always start to see different riders, the more common riders sort of pick up form, especially at Europe. And I think Vinales is going to be sort of looking at the races like in Spain, France, obviously, and thinking these are where I can get good results, and start to really catch up to Aleix.
Well, speaking of Vinales' old team, then we'll move on to Yamaha. They've not had the best of starts to the season. They've obviously had some grip problems and some horsepower problems and things, but they have been historically consistently at the front for European leg of the season. They've done quite well historically, and that was proven today. They got a win today, didn't they? So how do we think Yamaha are going to fare for the rest of the season? Is there anything that you think they might be able to improve on, or do you think that they're going to end up sort of being left behind? Do you think they're already too far behind for them to move forward?
Well, obviously Morbidelli's struggling, or so it seems. I think that so it's a bit the same with like Aprilia. You've got one rider that's like dominating the team, and the other rider not doing so well. Obviously, Quartararo's only gotten 2 podiums so far this season in Indonesia and today in Portugal. Again, I don't know if Quartararo might be a little bit annoyed that his teammate isn't really helping him defend his title. I don't know. Yamaha in Europe, like you said, always strong, and the Europe rounds are coming up. You've got quite a significant load of them coming up. But I just don't know. There's obviously something going on there at Yamaha. What do you think, Adam?
Yamaha's such a tricky one. We've obviously got Quartararo. He's now leading the championship after what looked like a year where, when the season started and the bike was where it was, I was sat there thinking Quartararo can't win it, basically, especially after the first round. He looked defeated, and he sounded so his morale seemed like it was at such a low point, especially after winning the championship. But suddenly he's won today, first race in Europe, and he's leading the championship. He's obviously tied on points with Alex Rins, but I think heading into Jerez, that's obviously where he got his first win in MotoGP in 2020. So I think that's, going there leading the championship after his first win this year.
Boost, isn't it?
Yeah, massive confidence boost for him. And I think whether he can keep that up this year, because obviously, as you say, the other Yamahas aren't really anywhere. Franco Morbidelli, he's not even in the top 10 in the championship at the moment, and he hasn't really been able to.
And you that's I don't know if you're a little bit surprised by that. I'm a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, I am, because when he was with the Yamaha satellite team, the Petronas team, past 2 or 3 years.
He
He's
was up
really
there.
been, yeah, he was up there. And it just seemed like he picked up that injury at, one race last season, I think it was. And suddenly
Yeah.
it just disappeared. He didn't come back for a few rounds. And maybe that's been the reason. Maybe he hasn't fully recovered. But it just seems like he's hit a bit of a brick wall and he can't seem to sort of climb over it, kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit like going back to Vinales, a little bit like him, really. Like there seems to be something stopping him from getting where he should be, where everyone's expecting him to be.
Yeah, it is strange because Morbidelli was brought in. He's kind of one of the older guys on the grid compared to like Quartararo, Jorge Martin, and Enea Bastianini. But it's weird to see how he isn't really gelling with the factory bike as he did with the satellite bike as he did a couple of years back. And Quartararo just seems to be, one step ahead of everyone else that's on the Yamaha bike at the moment.
Do you think he kind of went into the team thinking that like he would be the better one of the two, or do you just think it's just a case of he's just not getting on with the bike?
Maybe a bit of both, because obviously he was runner-up in the championship in 2020, and obviously Quartararo started off that season and he won the first 2 or 3 rounds of that year, and then suddenly he dropped off. So maybe he came into that team thinking, I can start off on a similar level with Fabio and
exactly.
gradually move ahead of him as the year goes on, but it just hasn't seemed to come to fruition in that kind of way.
It's all interesting stuff. I mean, having 2 riders of that sort of, I suppose, different levels of experience, it does make a difference. It can. But yeah, we'll see how that pans out throughout the season, I guess. Do you think they're sort of too far behind to make enough improvements for the rest of the season to put a fight up for the championship, or do you think they could make improvements?
They definitely can make improvements. They know what they're doing. They've got like Ninjavis behind him and things. He's been in it for years. They know what they're doing. They just need to find the point that they can improve on. They just need to figure out what it is, whether it's the rider, the bike, or just something else. Whether it's just the fact they haven't been at the European rounds yet.
Yeah, I think after today's win as well, as you say, that would be a big confidence boost. Going to Jerez, obviously, as I say, it's where Quartararo won his first race in MotoGP, and they obviously have the material to improve as the season goes on. And at the moment, it just seems like the championship is going to be so topsy-turvy that I still, Quartararo could still win this by a significant amount of points. But at the moment, it seems like it's going to be a lot closer than it was last year.
Yeah,
and if he's leading the championship.
If he's expecting to romp away with the win, I don't think that's going to happen. But it'd be more interesting to watch because everyone's so close. But we are only 5 rounds in, so it's a bit difficult to judge it, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, and I think especially as the European rounds, coming their numbers kind of thing. We've only just had the first one, and usually it's maybe not until maybe 2 or 3 rounds into the European leg of the season that we start to see who's going to be coming out on top. Obviously, we had Enea Bastianini. He won the first race. He won last time out in Austin, and he's now 4th in the championship. So whether he can start to sustain some good form, or whether he sort of drops off as the season goes on, I think that's sort of wait and see kind of thing. And I think it will be like that with Yamaha, except the opposite. See whether they can move their way up the grid and hope and see if Quartararo can have the bike behind him to consistently be at the front.
Yeah, well, speaking of consistency, I know that Ducati have had a bit of an interesting start to the season, shall we say. So they had a bit of a loss in form, and then they seem to have sort of found it again. They got a P2 today. They seem to have half solved their problems with their factory bike, but not fully. How do you feel about their season so far, and if they've actually managed to solve their problems or get anywhere with them at all?
Well, are you just talking about the factory team, or are we talking about all the Ducatis in the field?
No, all of them. I know that they've all had a bit of an issue, but yeah, just all of them. Yeah.
It's interesting to note that the first, obviously there's only been 5 races, but every race so far at least one Ducati has been on the podium, which I think is quite impressive.
That is good. That is very good indeed.
Yeah, pretty good. Obviously the ones you'd expect to be on the podium haven't really been. I think only Miller's been on the podium once so far. What do you think, Adam? Because I can't remember too much about the Ducatis.
Yeah, I'm just sort of looking at the results of the results of the season so far.
Yeah, like Bastianini's won. Zarco's come 3rd.
Yes.
2nd and 3rd, I think.
Yeah, I know Zarco is P2 today.
Yeah, Martin 2nd, and I think Bastianini and Miller have been on the podium as well. I believe 1st and 3rd maybe for those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like not the main ones that you would expect, like Bagnaia and Miller, you know, not really anywhere. Bagnaia's obviously injury as well that he's taken this weekend.
He's he came into this year as, I want to say, championship favourite.
Yeah,
and now
totally.
He's basically miles away from that championship site at the moment. And Ducati's such a frustrating team to watch, kind of thing. You know, they go into the season, you know, they look like championship favourites. It happened with Dovi however many years in a row, 2-3 years in a row, came to the season championship favourites, you know, sort of wins the first race and then suddenly just drops off. But with Ducati, it hasn't materialised at all from the get-go, kind of thing. No. Obviously Bastianini's, you know, at the front, but
he's the one outshining everybody else, which like we said is unpredictable. I didn't see that coming at all. Zarco, he's been on the podium twice this year already as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, someone I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, Zarco's 5th at the moment in the championship and Bastianini's 4th. But then the 2 factory Ducatis are 9th and 10th. So it's
what's going on in the factory team? Like, it just seems a bit strange. Like, there's rumours obviously that Miller's ride is up for debate for other people, and you think is that weighing on his mind? Is that why it's, you know, not so good in the team? Maybe, I don't know.
It is a weird one, because obviously Miller has all weekend sort of had those LCR Honda rumours starting to appear out of nowhere. He shut them down quickly today after the race, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's over. You know, in sports, you can say you're not going somewhere or I'm not going anywhere, kind of thing, but then a couple of months down the road,
Vinales did it all last year, didn't he? I'm not leaving Yamaha, and then all of a sudden he was at Aprilia.
He had a Yamaha contract. He had a Yamaha contract for however many years up the roads, and then suddenly he was booted out the team.
I think he had another 1 year. I think he's meant to be there this year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And obviously they terminated early.
Yeah, and you know, now with Miller, there's talk of Martino Bastianini getting that 2nd factory Ducati seat, but if I was one of them, I'd be thinking, well, maybe not necessarily Martini's 13th. Yeah, if I was Bastianini, I'd be thinking, I'm quite happy on the 21 bike rather than, you know, jumping on the new bike, because it seems that's where they struggle the most, is with the freshly updated bike. And obviously the younger bike sort of outshines everyone.
Exactly. I was going to say, is it because Bastianini and Zarco are on the 2021 bike that because it's already sorted and dialed in and everything's like ready to go? Is that why the factory ones aren't really doing so well, because they haven't quite hit that mark yet that they need to be at?
Yeah, it's such a tough one with Ducati, you know, because is there something going on in the factory team, you know, that we don't know about? Because they're obviously not going to come out and say, oh yeah, we're having like these issues within the team, kind of thing. And obviously Miller,
come out and say it, would you?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously Miller, he crashed out today and took out Mir with him. And I think Mir's reaction kind of said it all to how Miller's season's going. You know, slow clapping him when he crashed out. And I think Miller just needs that boost of confidence. He got the result in Austin, and that's when people thought, okay, this is where Miller's season kind of starts. But then obviously he has a result like today, and it could take him another 2 or 3 rounds to sort of come back strong as it
Exactly,
is.
and also the factory Ducati team have had a history of not really listening to their riders as much as well. You saw with Lorenzo, when he asked for that one little part that was going to help him, and then all of a sudden they relented and gave him the part, and he was winning again, or at least on the podium quite a lot more. You didn't then kind of go, well, is it down to the team? Are they actually listening to their riders? We won't know because they won't say that, but it's historical throughout Ducati that they don't normally listen to their riders as much as they probably should do.
Yeah,
Maybe there's something like that going on. They're like dominating the field with the amount of bikes that they've kind of like thrown in. And you kind of think are they maybe spreading their net a bit too far? Maybe they should be focusing just on like 4 riders or 2, you know, the factory team maybe more so than other people. But I don't know, it just seems a bit strange that they've just like, there's so many Ducatis now and yet not really much result. Yes, they've been on the podium every race, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think maybe they're a bit too diluted on the grid. I don't. There's so many Ducatis, and I don't think it helps the fact that there's 2 satellite Ducatis ahead of the 2 factory Ducatis.
No,
by quite some margin as well in the championship. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they're sort of maybe, I don't know what's the word, jumping ahead of themselves, thinking, oh yeah, it's a good idea to have this many bikes on the grid? Do you think that's maybe they need to concentrate more?
Do, yeah. I think they need to concentrate on their factory rides with Bagnaia and Miller. But then like you've obviously got the VR46 team, which are on Ducatis as well, which are the new team this year. And then you just kind of think, are they? I think they've spread themselves too thin, and should have just kept with the 4. With obviously you got Bassanini and Zarco, but then you've got so many, Martin, but then you've got really, really good riders. So God, I just don't know. It feels to me that they've spread themselves too far, and then they haven't been able to focus on what they need to focus on personally. But like you said, are they jumping the gun a bit too much and just going, well, you know, why not get all of these Ducatis on the grid?
Yeah. Yeah, it is strange to see sort of how much they struggle. You know, you'd think maybe on the one hand having so many bikes is good, you know, because they get more data kind of things, but then on the other hand they're kind of focusing on pleasing so many people rather than just focusing on maybe, you know, their factory team and maybe like one other team, sort of like what Honda are doing with, they've obviously got factory Honda team and then LCR Honda. They seem to be picking up the pace in terms of, you know, their results, and that's maybe what Ducati just needs to kind of look back at and think, you know, maybe that's what we need to do as well, and just focus on 1 or 2 teams rather than 3 or 4 or however many it is they've got now.
That's what the other teams do, and it works. It seems a little bit strange that they've just kind of gone this year, you know, we'll just have all these Ducatis all over the place. And I just don't see the maybe the reasoning behind it maybe so much.
Yeah, just I don't either.
Like you said, it's good to get the Ducati name out, and it's good to get all this like attention and everything else, but you just kind of think, well, maybe just focus on 2 teams, 3 tops maybe. It just seems a little bit odd.
Yeah, it does. I agree completely, and it just seemed like they're sort of spreading themselves too thin.
Okay, well, speaking of up and down seasons, I guess, for factory teams, Honda have had an interesting start to the season themselves, with an injury for Marc Marquez, putting him out for 1 race, and then sort of an illness for his teammate. It's been fascinating watching them, but they do have pace in that bike, and as you say, they've got pace in their satellite team as well. So what do we think to their season and Marc Marquez's sort of recovery from injury and how he's been racing since then?
Well, with Marquez, it's a little bit of a weird one, because obviously his injury is a recurring injury.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, it's probably a bit controversial, but I think maybe he should have considered retiring this year because of it. I know he's a really strong rider, and I know he'll come back strong anyway, or at least try to. But again, I think that might be weighing on his mind a little bit, that he doesn't want to push himself as much as he normally would or could, because then the doctors have said it could be permanent if he hits his head again, or it might not be the way he's used to it if he recovers from it again. I just don't know. I think personally it might be weighing on his mind a little bit more than it should, even if he says it's not, because why wouldn't it be affecting the way he rides? And obviously Paul Espargaro has rumours are up for his place as well at the factory team too. So he might not be 100% in on it either.
Yeah, so when I started following MotoGP was 2013. So that was Marquez's obviously first season in the championship. So I've sort of been following him the most because he was in there for the first time when I started watching it as well. So I like to see him do well for sure. A little
Definitely.
bit more so compared to other riders, because I think what he does on the bike is just sort of alien basically.
He's changed the way people ride.
Yeah, 100%. And I think since his injury in 2020 in the first race, nothing's gone right for him, I don't think. Obviously there was the injury that put him up for the rest of the season. Along that road he injured it even more by trying to open a door or a window at his house when he was recovering through the season, which literally finished him for that entire year. And then obviously he's had 2 or 3 episodes of double vision in the past year or so. I think like 3 in the past. Like 3 in the past 6 months or something. So he just needs to. I think at the moment
the problem is obviously it first started when he was in, I think it was 250s perhaps. It first started then, didn't it? So he's aware obviously that it keeps coming back every time he gets injured, and that's what I was thinking. Maybe he's just a bit more like, oh, if I fall off again and injure myself this time, will it be reversible? Will I always be able to fight back from it?
Yeah, like he obviously, as you say, he had that episode in 2011, I think it was, and it sort of disappeared since then. Obviously, since then he's won like 7 or 8 championships. So, but in the past, I think to say in the past 6 months that he's already had like 2 or 3 episodes of it is very worrying. And I think the fact that he just keeps having such massive crashes this year, it seems like he had another massive one at Portugal this weekend. And it's just a case of how long until he sits back and thinks, maybe I just need to stop. Because if he keeps getting like concussion after concussion after concussion, it's not going to be a healthy thing for him at all. And it probably isn't, or it's probably already really unhealthy, I think, for him as it is now. And I think he has got the pace. So
no, I was just he's obviously a fighter, isn't he? And he wants to race, and he wants to be the dominant guy, and of course he does. That's why you're in it, to win it, aren't you? That's why you're there. You're a different breed of person, but he has got to think about his health as well at the end of the day.
And I think that's what's going to be frustrating him most, the fact that in 2020, obviously it was the first race that he crashed out, but he looked so strong even then. And it looked like he would dominate that year. But then obviously he was out. And then this year he's come back. It's, everyone's been saying, oh, this is the comeback year for Marquez. But he's just been marred by injury after injury. Even in Austin a couple of weeks ago, I think he looked set to probably win or be very close to win that race. And then he bogged down at the start, dropped to the back of the field, and then managed to fight his way through the entire pack with lightning pace. But
that was really impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And now his pace is good, but he just keeps getting these little setbacks. And I think, as you say, his health will play on his mind. And I think there's a lot of people around him will be sort of saying, look, you just need to calm down, find the limit.
But that's how he races, though. That's how he rides, isn't it? He tries to find the limit and then pushes himself to push past it ever so slightly, just to get that extra little bit over everybody else. that's what he does, isn't it? He does that to get to the limit, and you've seen it throughout all of his career. That's how he rides, and that's how he progresses. But maybe he now needs to figure out a different way to learn and progress in the as he goes, just so he doesn't injure himself to the point where he's out of every race. You know, like he can't have another year like last year, and even this year to a point.
I think now he just needs to sort of maybe calm himself down and just think long term. Maybe start to think about 2023. You know, this year he's now 11th in the championship, so there's still a long way to go, but he's already missed a couple of rounds. So is it worth trying to push himself to try and win the championship this year and maybe risk, you know, another injury? I don't think so personally. I just think he needs to get himself set on that bike and be ready for 2023. I'm not saying, you know, write off this year altogether.
No.
I'm just saying he needs to have a long-term kind of plan rather than a short-term kind of thing.
He definitely needs to be thinking of, definitely long term, like you say. What do you think about his teammate? Like you might have watched the race today. I think you probably did, but like they were hinting that they don't like each other. Do you think that's another factor, or any kind of factor within the team?
Yeah, Paul Espargaro has his enemies on track, let's say.
Yeah.
He has the people that don't really like him, and he has the people that sort of don't get along with him. And yeah, I do remember something that Marquez and Paul don't really get along. And so obviously maybe that could be a factor in Honda's slow progress.
You just kind of want the team to like connect and be a team, don't you? You want it to be that like nice environment that you go to and you're happy and everyone's chatting and helpful. But like because he had his brother in the team with him before, do you just think he's kind of a bit like upset with Honda maybe about that?
Yeah, because I still do find the whole Alex Marquez situation so strange. Like they booted him out of the factory team before a wheel had even turned for the 2020 season, and I always found that so odd, and I still do, like, sort of to this day, especially as we saw how he performed on the bike. You know, obviously he wasn't at the front consistently, but there was races, especially towards the back end, where he really picked up his form. And obviously Le Mans and Aragon, they were the two big ones. But I think Marc Marquez will be I think he will be unhappy the fact that Alex was sort of kicked out of the team before the 2020 season even started, kind of thing. And I think he will be unhappy with the fact that he's got Paul alongside him, but he maybe didn't want that.
And even though Paul's been like near the top in the races, but do you think that Honda have developed the bike around him in the past year, and that's another thing towards Mark, where he's just kind of gone, well, they developed it around him, and I've been off, and now I'm trying to come back in, and I can't, and all of that kind of weighing on his mind.
I think because, you know, since Marquez came to the team, that bike was his bike kind of thing. And obviously the past couple of years, he hasn't really been there. You know, there is going to be a time when Marquez isn't riding a Honda bike. And they've kind of realized they need to build it around all their riders. Do you think
Paul is the next guy to take the mantle? Because I personally don't see it.
No, I don't. I think he's not going to be the future of Honda. I think, you know, maybe he'll be like a Daniel Pedrosa kind of guy. You know, maybe in the next couple of years he'll be at the front consistently, but maybe not quite championship material. But I think there's obviously so much young talent coming through, and I think that is going to be something that Honda are looking at now. Especially like Ayogura, you know, there's talk of him coming into the LCR team. In the near future. So I think Honda will have their eyes on sort of their next young star. We've obviously got Pedro Acosta, who came out of nowhere in Moto3 last 100%.
year.
He's kind of struggled to find his feet in Moto2, but like he's still, you know, he's going to get there.
He's so young.
Yeah.
And you can't expect him to just go like straight on it and start winning. It's going to take time to get used to it and everything like that as well. But it's funny that you mentioned him, because I was thinking he could be the next one to go through into Honda properly.
Yeah, I agree. I think, he could be the next sort of future star of Honda and their next kind of star rider that they have. And I think once Marquez, it's tough to say how long Marquez will actually still be in the sport. Will he retire in the next 3 or 4 years? Or will he just keep going past that, let's say up to the age of what Valentino Rossi was before he retired? But I think that will depend on how his injuries go and what his pace looks like.
I can't see Honda getting rid of Marquez unless Marquez physically says, I can't race anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
I think them getting rid of Paul.
Yeah, I think they'll bring in a young rider, I think. But I remember I think there was even talking maybe Quartararo. He was getting frustrated at Yamaha and potentially looking at a move to Honda. So it is, I think now at the moment it is still up in air. And I think as obviously the silly season starts and kind of riders start to sign contracts and things, it will definitely become clear of what's going to happen. But I think, I do think maybe the end of this year or one more year left for Paul at Honda, because it's not really gone the way maybe people kind of thought it would have.
Well, one team we should mention before we end is Suzuki. So they have got their strengths back by the look of it. So the riders are able to push the bikes a bit harder now. And it's been especially positive. Like today, Alex Rins had an incredible performance going from 23rd to P4. So what do we think about their season so far?
They're getting there. Certainly. Like the past couple of seasons, but they've sort of had a bit of a shaky start. But now I think more than ever, they've really shown that they are a sort of force to be reckoned with. Obviously, Alex Rins is tied on points with Quartararo in the championship now. And he seems to have really found his consistency that he needed to find. Last year, he had such good pace, but he just couldn't be a consistent finisher, especially at the start of the season. He was dropping the bike and
such bad luck.
He was having bad luck and he was crashing out, and he just couldn't find that sort of ability to consistently be at the front without, dropping the bike to the gravel. And I think now he's found that, and Joan Mir is, well, obviously he won the championship in 2020, so that kind of speaks for itself. And I think he's found pace. He was struggling at the start of this season and he wasn't really happy, but he seems to have found his edge now. And it is good to see Suzuki sort of at the front, but it's such a strange one in MotoGP because there's no idea of who actually is the best team at the moment. But Suzuki, they're the only team with 2 riders in the top 6. So I'd like to say it's them, but just depends whether they can carry that momentum, continuing into the rest of the season.
Yeah, obviously Rins is the only one with 2 podiums this year so far, though, as well. So, like, I know Mir was consistent last year, but do you think that they're kind of like putting their hopes on Rins this year more than Mir?
I think so. I think the roles have kind of switched again, because obviously when Mir came into the team, he was expected to not play second fiddle, but Rins was supposed to be the leader of the team. And then Mir won the championship in 2020, so that'll have hurt Rins a lot. Yeah. And I think now Rins has found his form, he's found his consistency. And I think this is the year where Rins starts to sort of unlock that potential that he has shown since he came into MotoGP. But at the moment, it looks like Rins is sort of, I want to say the rider to beat at the moment this year, because he's the one who's shown the most consistency out of probably the rest of the grid. So it is good to see Rins finally finding his feet.
Is he going to win a race?
I think so. I'd like to see him win a race. But I guess with MotoGP, you can never tell. Well,
this year especially just seems so unpredictable.
Yeah, and heading into Europe, even now, it seems like I can't put a name on who's the fastest, who's the best at the moment.
No.
A couple of rounds ago, I would have said Quartararo was not really got a chance at the championship, as I said earlier. But now he's leading the championship
Yeah.
after today's race. So it's so unpredictable, and it's going to be interesting to see if Suzuki can sort of keep that momentum up and establish themselves as the best team on the grid.
Definitely. Do you find it exciting now that it's a lot more unpredictable, or would you rather it be like it was before when like one person was always like at the front and winning all the time?
Yeah, I love the unpredictability of it, because I'm a sort of neutral when it comes to MotoGP. So it is nice to see so many riders at the front and heading into a race weekend and having absolutely no idea of who's going to win. Obviously, if you look at, let's say World Superbikes, there's always Johnny Ray or Top Rack, who are the kind of leading couple of people. But in MotoGP, you've got maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 different riders.
It's kind of just flipped completely, hasn't it? It's just so bizarre now.
Yeah.
It's good. But obviously, like, when like, for example, the easiest one is just to say Rossi, when he was winning everything, that was bringing in crowds and new people to watch the races and everything like that, wasn't it? And it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And do you think it's kind of lost something because of that now, or do you think it's even better because it's so unpredictable, which is bringing people in?
Yeah, I think if you look at F1, for an example, Mercedes dominated for so many years, and now suddenly it's kind of flipped, and there's, it's so spread out kind of thing. And it
is that unpredictability that's enjoyable to watch. Of course it is. Like you say with F1, like you see like McLaren are up there again, and it's nice to not see the same faces all the time winning, and it is interesting. I just don't know if I don't know if some fans might be a bit more lost without someone to follow.
Yeah, I to be honest, I agree with you. Like, I think the more, like, from myself as a neutral perspective, is good, but as someone who wants to find someone to follow, it's so difficult, because you can't pick one single rider at the moment on the grid who's going to be a dominant force. Since 2020, they're like, obviously with Marquez not being in contention, there's been like 3-4 riders who could have won in the past couple of years, and now it seems like there's at least 5 who could win it this year. But
like anyone can win a race, it seems, as well. Like Sebastianini just won out of nowhere. And you think, oh wow. Martin last year, and you just think, wow, like literally anyone could win a race. Like, is Zarco ever going to win a race? Because it'd be nice to see him win one.
Yeah, he just seems like the kind of rider who just can't win a race. He'll finish second so many times, but he finishes as runner-up in a race and just cannot find that spark to like get out in front and lead at the front. And I can guarantee it is frustrating for a lot of
it's just frustrating.
All of his fans.
Frustrating in general. You just want him to get up there.
Do a backflip.
You've been so long. Come on. You just willing him.
So with all that unpredictability, I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you have any predictions for the season? I'd love to know. They don't have to necessarily be who's going to win the championship, because at the moment we're all a bit up and down. But any predictions for the season, Adam?
I think Zarco will win a race. That's the prediction. Zarco will win a race, finally. Other than that, I think KTM, I'd like to see KTM finally come to the front. I think they'll eventually get there. They seem to be getting there slowly but surely. Not necessarily win the championship, but I do think they'll maybe have at least one rider in the top 3. I want to say top 3 maybe. It's a bold prediction, but I would like to see it happen. And I do think they've maybe got the pace, especially when we get to Europe, to sort of get to the front.
I'd like to see like Martin like further up. I just think he's got so much talent, and I just think like he could really be up there. And the same with Alex Marquez as well. Like I'm thinking like the younger ones going forward. I just like to see the younger ones kind of like pushing through a bit more. Like you got Bastianini obviously going through and Bagnaia, but I didn't see Bastianini obviously getting as far forward as he has done so far this year. But I just like to see like more of the younger ones like Luca Marini maybe like doing not better because they are doing really, really well anyway, but just more up there and you see more of them and maybe even get on the podium more than they have done. Obviously I know Martin has, but you haven't seen Luca Marini properly up there. You haven't really seen Alex Marquez. Even like Taka Nakagami would be quite fun to see up there. You know.
Well, on that note, we want everyone to do well, obviously. But yeah, it's nice to have your predictions. And for those listening and watching, we'd love to hear your predictions. Drop us a comment. Do you think there's going to be anyone on top after the 5 rounds that we've had so far? Or is there anyone that you think is going to make it all the way up there? Let us know. I'm just going to say thank you very much for listening or watching on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, as well as like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, or visit us on www.thepitcrewonline.net. A special thank you to Adam and Mandy today. Where can we find you guys on social media? Mandy?
Mandy GP on the Crew On Two website. It's Mandy Penguin on Twitter. It's just Mandy Mullender on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. And Adam?
So mainly just Twitter. Frequent user of Twitter. Just AdamProd25_JRN. So yeah, it's been great to be here.
Lovely.
It's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I'm at T Motorsport Girl on pretty much all social medias. So yeah, make sure you can go and follow the Crew On Two as well. They cover all your MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, Superbikes, all sort of your bike needs, basically. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And as always, we will see you out on track.